Well, thank you everyone for being with us. And now I'd like to introduce somebody really special for our community, Hugo. Well, thank you, Hugo, for accepting the invitation. Hulgo Freitas is a Cambridge qualified teaching trainer, materials writer, course designer, director of studies, and international well, Hugo, it's great being your friend. You're an international and oral examiner based in Goiânia, Brazil. And he's also a Cambridge CELT-P, CELT-S and DELTA Module 1 tutor. And he holds the Cambridge CELTA DELTA Trainer and LPACTE from the British Council. Besides being a columnist at the BRAZ-TESOL Echoes magazine, he is the current finance director of BRAZ-TESOL, the largest English teaching association in Latin America. Hugo has vast experience in training and developing teachers from across Brazil. Hugo, thank you so much for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me well? Is that okay? Can you see the slides well? Yeah, very good. All right, everybody. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here today. I think that it's important for us to we're here, we're in this together to help Rio Grande do Sul, and I think that what Tami and Edu have prepared is of utmost importance, not only for Rio Grande do Sul, but for us as individuals, for us to learn that it's all about sharing, that we need to be able to think about others and help other people who are in need. So I really believe that this event is just a springboard for other events for us to start helping other people within our country and other countries as well, whenever we can. So Tami and Edu, thank you very much for this. I think this is a spectacular event filled with amazing professionals delivering talks that are really awe-inspiring for all of us. And not only are we actually learning from these amazing professionals that are here to help us, but we're also helping people that really need it. So I think that it's a win-win situation, right? We have nothing but to gain from this event. So thank you very much for what you have done. It's amazing. So I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of being your friend. So today we're going to talk a little bit about. We've been talking since yesterday about artificial intelligence, right? So we had Felipe talking about this, and then we had also Taylor and Gabi talking about a little bit more about critical thinking, which I believe that if we put them together, we can get something amazing with our students. So this is the idea of this talk. How can I make use of artificial intelligence to foster our students' critical thinking? We know that in this day and age, it's quite difficult to find people who really want to develop their critical thinking. Like being a thinker today is not as easy as it seems, right? And now that we have so many tools that can kind of, help us to think for ourselves, it is a challenge for teachers to be able to help students to, stop to think that this is not the way, that we need to use these tools, we need to use these new technologies to help us develop our critical thinking, and not, to use them as something that would just, how could I put this? We would just, oh, I just want to make things faster, so I don't need to think about that. So I can just provide my teacher what they want, but not really what I need. So as a student, so this is what I think that we need to think about when we are when we kind of integrate artificial intelligence and all other kinds of tools into English language teaching, and not only English language teaching, right? In any kind of teaching in this day and age. So what is it? What is the connection that we can make when we think about critical thinking and language learning? To start off, it's important to understand the concept of critical thinking, right? The idea of critical thinking is to, like critical thinking entails, this ability of analyzing, of, like evaluating and synthesizing language or information, sorry, to form reasoned judgments about, like, and making, and help us to make informed decisions, right? And when we talk about language learning in this realm of language learning, it's important to go beyond the idea of teaching only grammar, vocabulary, functions, and everything of which a language is consisted. So we need to take that into consideration so that students can actually not only reach a certain level of language proficiency, but also to help these students of ours to become better citizens, right? Better thinkers. So this connection is extremely important when we think about critical thinking and language learning. So we're going to we're going to dive a little bit into this idea of critical thinking before we move on to artificial intelligence, because we need to consider what the role of critical thinking skills is for language proficiency and real life communication, right? So when we talk about critical thinking, we need to help our students to understand nuance and context. By nuance, I'm talking about shades of meaning, shades of cultures, shades of backgrounds, everything that consists of what a society is about. So we need to help our students develop that. Also, we need to think of the idea of being able to not only acquire this information, but also to evaluate this information so that we are able to, reach a conclusion and make informed decisions about what we are going to say. Also, we need to help our students, with problem solving in communication. If we give students the a certain topic to talk about, any kind of topic, from a lower level up to a more proficient level of the language, we need to help students to be able to learn how to solve problems within the language, right? We need also, when it comes to critical thinking, is to help students understand that in our society, there must be adaptability, there must be flexibility, so that we are able to we are able to reach any individual within our society, because that's what critical thinking is about. It's about the idea of analyzing, evaluating, solving problems by adapting and making it flexible for people to understand other backgrounds, right? We also need to do that with precision, right, and clarity. We need to make sure that the message that is conveyed, the message that we're trying to get across, is not only efficient but also appropriate to what we are to the context that we're trying to be integrated in, right? And critical thinking is also about cultural sensitivity and empathy. What we are doing here today is an example of that. It's understanding that regardless of the background you come from, you need to show respect, you need to show empathy, you need to be empathetic about people. We need to understand, we need to put ourselves in other people's shoes to be able to become better citizens, to become, in the role of students, to become not only better citizens, but also proficient speakers of the language, to be able to communicate well, right? But when it comes to promoting critical thinking in the classroom, there are some challenges that we teachers face, right? And here I have put together some of the challenges that we face. Of course, that there is a myriad of challenges that teachers face when it comes to promoting critical thinking in the classroom. But these are some of the issues that I find particularly more challenging, right? We're talking about the standardized testing procedures. We talk about time constraints as well in the classroom, particularly when we have large class sizes. Like it's difficult for teachers to be able to promote this critical thinking when they're not able to provide feedback and to listen to all the students in the classroom. Today we talk about a lack of resources, even though there is a wide range of resources online, books and everything. We know that most students, like again, we need to think about not all of the students because that's not the context that everybody lives in, but there is a lack of resources. We can't take for granted that just because, you know, I'm teaching here at Express Language Center and students, you know, are provided with technology to work in class and everything, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the context that every student lives in, so we need to take that into consideration. There is also the fact that, particularly in the country we live in today, you know, like resistance to change is quite challenging, right? And then when we want to integrate technology in language learning as well, if we're teaching adults, for example, there's usually a resistance to change, to using these new technologies to be able to promote their critical thinking, right? We talk about cultural and linguistic diversity. We go back to what Taylor said yesterday about diversity. What is it to be diverse? You know, like what is it to, how is it that we can actually, how can we actually help students to better understand, you know, different cultures and different language backgrounds, and try to promote this idea that there is not only, you know, English, American English and British English, but there are Englishes everywhere. And how are we able to implement the idea of learning this language and still understanding other cultures and still understanding, you know, like other like cultural backgrounds, linguistic backgrounds, where people come from. So this is a kind of a challenge for students and for teachers as well. We talk about assessment. When we are teaching online, particularly if you're teaching teenagers, right, there are lots of digital distractions. So there is WhatsApp, they're like using their WhatsApp, they are like, they have their TikTok on and Instagram, so they're not, you know, they use these tools, but they do not use them as wisely as they could. You know, like how can they actually use these platforms? How can they use these distractions as a springboard for learning rather than a hindrance? So we need to take that into consideration as well, because this is a challenge for teachers today. And we also need to think about the role of the teacher, you know, like the teacher's professional development. There are teacher professional development needs. How can we implement, how can we help teachers to help students develop their critical thinking skills? So we need to take all of these into consideration, right? But then when we think about all of this, it's already hard for us to help students foster their critical thinking skills. And then now we have tools that kind of help them think, you know, because it kind of spoon feeds the students all the time, and the students are not able to analyze and evaluate things appropriately because they rely heavily on artificial intelligence. A good example of this is when you ask students to write a composition, whether this is an essay or an article or a report, and then they come to class with something ready-made, and you can clearly see it's black and white that what students have written is not their work. So this is just an example of this, which is the most common one I have gone through, you know, like as a teacher. And from what I have seen so far, writing has been one of the most difficult aspects of dealing with artificial intelligence in the classroom, in and outside of the classroom, right? But then how can we actually, you know, when I devised these slides, I was thinking about, is it really artificial intelligence versus critical thinking? Is it really what I wanted to, you know, to express? You know, I'm not sure that it's versus critical thinking. I think that the idea is artificial intelligence and critical thinking. So how can we actually integrate artificial intelligence in the classroom in order to help our students develop their critical thinking? There are problems, there are things to take into consideration, right, when we think about artificial intelligence, because today, for example, we have students copying lots of information from our, you know, ChatGPT and other sources of AI, and sometimes we're not able to see exactly how much students can perform. First of all, because there is an over-dependence on translation tools, so they use lots of translation tools to help them instead of trying to use their own language, the language that they have already acquired, to be able to develop their speech, or, you know, to be able to give their opinion about something. There is also limited engagement with authentic materials, because the students, they are always They get information from any kind of artificial intelligence source, and what they say is not exactly what they are thinking. It's what artificial intelligence is telling them to think about, you know? So how can we actually bridge the gap between what the students know and what artificial intelligence is providing? And how can we teachers actually analyze if what students are telling us or what students have written for us to, you know, like in a piece of paper, if it's really something that came from them, if it's really something that they thought about. We also reduce opportunities for error correction and feedback because students get everything ready from you know, artificial intelligence, and it's hard for us to be able to analyze not only the content to which students have been exposed, but also the language that you need to correct. So how do I know whether or not my student is making progress if they're using, if I'm not able to you know, correct the students because they have like a ready-made production. This involves loss of creativity and expression. As I said before, there is, you know, like students, how possible is it for teachers to be able to analyze if that was made by students, if students are expressing their opinions about that rather than just going online and then chatting, you know, like writing a question on ChatGPT and you know, getting some information, and that information comes from the internet. So this loss of creativity and expression has everything to do with the ethical and moral considerations of language learning. Because what happens here is that students, and that's a blind spot in students that we teachers need to be very aware of. Students are not aware that they are losing their ability to think creatively, that because they are copying from the internet, right? And this is something to think about. How aware are your students, are our students, of the dangers of using artificial intelligence to help them think for themselves? So this is something to think about. So, and where is the ethical, what are the ethical considerations? You know, like, to what extent am I actually providing my teacher with reliable information and something that I really want to express? So something to think about. And also we need to think of, you know, the integration of artificial intelligence into pedagogy. This is a huge challenge for teachers because it is not only about artificial intelligence. We have been talking about this for ages, you know, like since the advent of, you know, new technologies. We are always saying that using technology for the sake of it in the classroom doesn't make sense. There must be some pedagogical implications inside of your classroom for them to be able to use artificial intelligence. So to what extent are we integrating it for the sake of just, you know, using this new trend, or are we actually using artificial intelligence in the classroom to actually foster students' skills to learn the language? So something to think about as well. So always think about this. If I'm using artificial intelligence in the classroom, if I'm asking students, is it something that I can do without artificial intelligence? Is artificial intelligence helping me to develop students' ability to learn the language and produce language and give their opinions about things and discuss and reach a conclusion? Are we using it with a pedagogical purpose behind it? If not, that is something to think about. Maybe we should reconsider it, right? And then when we think about all of this and all of these ideas of artificial intelligence and everything that, you know, all of the problems that we have when using artificial intelligence to promote critical thinking in the classroom, this is, like, in my opinion, right? This is a very personal opinion about this, which I have kind of written down here for you. And to be honest with you, we teachers, we tend to be afraid of all of these new technologies, you know, that are being released in the market, such as AI, and we forget that we've been through similar breakthroughs before, right? So stop to think about Wikipedia and other technological sources that were released, for example, right? When students used this information from the sources until we were able to teach. They use this information, all of this, but it wasn't reliable, right? And to what extent are we teaching our students to use these tools? It's a new tool that is going to come, that is in the market now, and I don't think it's the last one. I think that, there will be more things to, impress us, because that's what technology does to us, right? It impresses us by, and every single day there is a new tool, there is something new to help us. So what we need to think about here is that everything that we have been introduced to since the advent of these new technologies is that we need to teach students to use that so that it becomes a springboard for the learning and not a hindrance, right? It's not about banning students from using artificial intelligence or any other technological tool, but rather teach them how to use it to their advantage, right? So how can we teach students to use these tools, these new tools, right? Whether this is whether we use artificial intelligence to write texts or to create a nice picture so that the students can, compare and contrast and discuss a certain topic. So how different is it from when we first learned about Wikipedia, when students would always get information from Wikipedia and copy things from Wikipedia, like in writing, or they would use that information to discuss, even though they weren't aware that most of the information that we have there, not most of the information, but I would say to a certain extent that there is some information that is not entirely reliable because people can change it, right? So I think that the idea is integrating these tools with a pedagogical purpose and teaching students to use it critically, right? We need to be able to help students, we need to teach students to use these tools wisely, right? So this is what I think about today. All right, but enough of saying bad things about AI and and problems and all of these setbacks that we can find in artificial intelligence and helping students develop their critical thinking. So let's think about what we can do to help students enhance their critical thinking. So artificial intelligence, whether this is ChatGPT or any other kind of AI tool, it can help to personalize learning pathways, right? It can help students to it can help students to acquire information from ChatGPT, check if it's a reliable source. Everybody, those who attended Felipe's talk yesterday, Felipe gave a great ideas on how to use, ChatGPT in the classroom as a teacher, actually. So we can use those strategies that Felipe taught us yesterday to help students personalize, their learning pathway. So artificial intelligence can also help students with immediate feedback and error correction. We had Tami talking about that yesterday when she said that, like she created, is it Mozu? Tami, I think that's it, right? Yeah, I can't remember I took photos of that. I'm going to fuçar um pouquinho depois. I want to learn a little bit more about that tool. That like it provides immediate feedback to students. Not only on language but also on content. So something to think about. Like there are also language analysis and insights. How can students analyze language using artificial intelligence? One of the things that I do a lot with more advanced students is that they have to have their personal glossary. They need to learn, they need to have, whether this is, like a digital glossary or, a paper, like a paperback glossary, they need to use. I have taught them to use ChatGPT to learn new words. Like, for example, how can I, I'm always looking for dictionaries and everything, but what about asking, ChatGPT, for instance, to give you the definition, the collocations, and 2 or 3 examples of how to use that particular target language that you were teaching your students, you know? So you should, for example, when I'm teaching, you know, C2 proficiency, I see a wide range of, there are lots of new words that, you know, teachers are learning because there's a gap between CE and CD, for example, and what I think is particularly in terms of vocabulary, you know, like expressions and collocations and nuance, right? So how can we use you know, ChatGPT or any other tool to help them analyze language and see language from a different perspective? So that's something that I trying to do with students. There's also the fact that there is a natural language processing, right? So students are able to learn the language more naturally. Students can, you know, grasp language by reading, by listening, you know, by playing with artificial intelligence more naturally and more independently, I would say, right? There's also the fact that it can support cognitive modeling and adaptive learning. But then this has to be, we need to make judicious use of this, you know, to help with cognitive modeling and adaptive learning, because, you know, we are always thinking about using a certain approach, a certain method to teach students, but then what about allowing the students to experiment with the language and use these tools to, you know, experiment. So we also need to take that into consideration, right? There is collaborative learning and peer interpretation as well, right? I'm going to skip some of them here. So content curation and recommendations. There's collaborative learning and peer interpretation. You can have the students work together in the classroom to you know, not only using it individually, they can help each other in the classroom to create situations so that they can discuss. If you are having the pros and cons of something, one student uses artificial intelligence to think of the pros, and then another one uses it to look for the cons of a certain situation. Students read, you know, a certain paragraph, and then they have to discuss, you know, like they have a debate. So you are in favor, I'm against something. So according to what I have found on ChatGPT, for example, this and this and this can happen, this and this can happen, and then you can help your students to, you can encourage your students to even add more content points to what they have found in artificial intelligence, right? So in terms of strategies for integrating artificial intelligence tools in the lessons, first of all, we need to provide guidance and context, right? It's important to help students to understand. They need to learn how to use these tools. It's not like using the tool for the sake of learning. We need to help students to make judicious use of these platforms, right? We need to encourage exploration and experimentation, you know, like, you know, spare some 15 minutes of your class, 20 minutes of your class to help your students experiment and explore those artificial intelligence tools so that it can help them, you know, develop their critical thinking. They have to promote reflection and metacognition, you know, like, okay, so you've read something on ChatGPT, but how reliable is it? Is it true? Does it apply to your context, to your, you know, living context? How different is it if you were talking about this with, you know, other people? So something to, with other cultures, for example, right? So something to think about. We integrate authentic materials and tasks. So you can have students develop tasks in the classroom using artificial intelligence rather than you yourself as a teacher developing this. So I have had, I'm giving another example of Cambridge exams. I usually have, for example, if students have to compare and contrast pictures, they have to create their own images, and they have to, one student, they create their own images, they put these images together, and then they compare and contrast these pictures and reach an outcome, you know, and then they have to give their opinion about their partner's pictures, for example, or what their partner has said, you know. So it really and try to implement their background and other people's backgrounds into the classroom, right? It helps to emphasize communication and creativity, you know. But again, we need to teach our students how this can emphasize creativity, you know? So if you were talking about, like, if you're asking for some information about something that you don't know, how is it that you were not copying, you were actually helping the students to use that information to add to what they have, you know, and become the famous input plus one that we have, you know, not only in terms of language, but also in terms of content, right? And then we need to provide scaffolding and support to students as well, okay? So, practical tips to use artificial intelligence. I'm almost there, right? So we need to understand AI tools. We need to set clear objectives as teachers. Why am I using this? We need to provide training and support to teachers, so and students, right? So learn about that, the tools that you need to use before, okay? And teach your students how to use it. Personalized learning experiences as well. This is very important. We talked about this before. And promote active engagement, not only between student and computer, but student computer and another student, student computer and the classroom, student teacher and the classroom and the computer. So, you know, like an artificial intelligence together. So creating things together. So promote engagement, right? Monitor progress and feedback, and don't let students, you know, rely heavily on artificial intelligence to help them correct themselves, you know, because artificial intelligence has lots of standards. They have patterns, you know, like once you start using it a lot, you know, like very frequently, you kind of, you know, get familiar with the patterns of artificial intelligence, you know, encourage creativity and innovation. Ensure accessibility and inclusivity. This is very important. Are all your students able to use it in the classroom? If I'm going to, you know, integrate artificial intelligence in the classroom, am I really going to, are all my students able to use it? Do they have the tools to use it? Are they all equipped with mobile phones that are able to use it? So we need to think about that as well. And don't forget the ethical and responsible use of artificial intelligence. So think about students' backgrounds, think about so students' backgrounds, think about cultural backgrounds, think about, you know, every kind of analyze everything before you are able to use it in the classroom. So always take these things into consideration, because if you this is a kind of a checklist of things we need to take into account when we want to use artificial intelligence to promote critical thinking. All right. So here to, you know, to wrap up, I just wanted to show you, just wanted to give you some examples of what we can do in the classroom to practice, you know, writing, speaking, reading, listening. There is a wide range of things that you can do. But for example, if with reading, you can help students, you know, students create a text using artificial intelligence. They analyze and interpret the text. Students, they can come up with questions about the text and about their background and other cultural backgrounds as well. So they can make comparisons between what the text brings, you know, what the text that artificial intelligence has created. They can make comparisons between the text and their culture and their background, and also other cultural backgrounds, you know. So making these connections and understanding these nuances in culture can help students foster their critical thinking and use language judicious, like well, right? We can also have fact-checking exercises, you know, like students, they use artificial intelligence to, you know, verify the accuracy, you know, and appropriacy of a certain element that you were talking about in class, right? In terms of writing, for example, you can have the students generate a text in AI, and then the students have to summarize that text. And then one student summarize the text created by AI, and you ask AI to summarize that text. So you have two texts, two summaries, and then the students can exchange pairs, you know, like exchange work, sorry. They can exchange their production, and then they can compare which was produced by AI and which one was produced by, you know, a human being. So you can make these connections, and then like which one was, in terms of critical thinking, which one was closer to our reality in Brazil, if you're teaching in Brazil or in Canada. So is it closer to our reality, or is it, you know, like they can have discussions about this, okay? That's in writing. So in speaking, we can use, AI to generate debates, like to moderate debates on ethical issues, for example, helping students to articulate and defend their viewpoints. So there's a wide range of things that you can do in the classroom when using artificial intelligence, okay? To finish off, some ideas to overcome those challenges that we talked about. Start small, right? Bit by bit, step by step. Provide adequate training and support to both teachers and students. Collaborate with technology specialists. So if you're not much aware of how to use those tools, make sure that you have somebody help you use them before you get into the classroom and use these tools with your students, because you need to master the tool before you are able to teach your students. Adapt pedagogical strategies. Again, remember that it's all about learning. It's all about there must be some pedagogical principles behind it so that you are able to use them in the classroom. Customize content and activities in a way that they are realistic to your students, because artificial intelligence brings an overall idea of a certain topic. So sometimes, right, if you're not very familiar with how to use it, monitor students' progress and feedback. Don't let students rely heavily on feedback from artificial intelligence. Encourage them to engage with other students as well and give opinions using different contexts. Promote critical thinking and reflection about how they have used artificial intelligence, and seek feedback and evaluation from peers. So if you have the chance to have somebody observe your lesson and see if that activity helped students in the classroom and see how this was introduced in the class, if that integration in the classroom has been effective. So having this, peer feedback correction would be very important as well, and stay informed and adapt. So always look to enhance your skills when it comes to using artificial intelligence in the classroom. And if you have seen that something that you have used with your students, something hasn't been as effective as you think, you can adapt it and make it more effective for your next lessons, okay? So basically that's it. I think I went over the time, like some 5 minutes, right? I'm so sorry for this. There's too much information to talk about. But basically, this is what I wanted to bring to you. Like, what you need is that, again, we need to use artificial intelligence as a springboard for learning, not a hindrance. We need to think that it is a new tool that we are going to use. It is transformative. It is important. It's here to stay. I don't think it's a trend. I think it's evolving, and it's going to be more and more widespread. It's a ubiquitous tool that we have today. So we need to make sure that we use it to our advantage and to our students' advantage as well. Okay. So thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed it. So if you want to contact me, to talk a little bit more about critical thinking and artificial intelligence, you can check it out on my Instagram, hulgo.freitas.elt. I have my email as well, hulgo.freitas@gmail.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well, Hulgo Freitas. So thank you very much, everybody. It was a great pleasure.
Hi, Hugo. Thank you so much. We loved it. I guess I was checking the comments, and then everyone was so thankful for having you with us. Yes, you shared so much. Thank you. Thank you. Well, having said that, guess what? Edu and I were going to be talking now. Edu, ready?
Yes, we're ready. So
Yes.
we just need to adjust the frame. Thank you very much, Hugo, for being here with us. It's gonna take us less than 1 minute to do so.